Good day, Bob here at Weldnrust, and we got a lot of fun fabrication in store. There's a lot of new bracketry involved in this one. Please enjoy.
Well, after several days, just kidding, it's only a few minutes, of me overthinking it, what I'm going to do is, this is kind of rotted, but this is still a factory edge of the actual part. The other one's rotted away. I'm going to replace this with new metal, the bottom, I'm going to say 1.5 inches of it. And when I remake it, I'm going to make flanges on here, on both sides with holes in it for rosettes. This way, I've got something to weld to, with this. Now, the way this thing is supposed to sit is the bottom of this door is flat. The inside is tapered, the gap changes. So that doesn't work so well. So, where this one is sitting in here, it's about halfway between where the edge of the door is. This edge is going to be the same. So what I have to do is, because I got good solid structure here from the door jamb, is create a piece that'll actually join these two together where I want it. And the idea here is, once I figure out the pattern, create the part, make two of them mirror imaged so they match. So I can weld those pieces in here. I have this to weld to. I now have a place where I can actually weld this. And at the time, once I get it pretty much where I want it, I can weld it solid. Because from there, if I have to, or if I want to, we'll see, I might, maybe I won't. It's supposed to be 10 inches away from there. I might not even have to. I'll just make my piece from here to here, and just leave this, or I might just straighten off this. Haven't decided yet. We'll worry about that later. But at least we've got a game plan now to start making some structure in this thing. So as you can see, I've been doing a bit of grinding around here, try to get some of the rust off of it, see where we're at. And of course I find a nice little gaping hole right in here. I really want to save this section. This I'm not worried about. I'm going to make something else to mate up to this, but this I wanted to keep. So I'm faced with the dilemma how to fix it. So I could make a tiny little patch panel in here, and if, let's say, this was a large sheet metal piece and I didn't want to warp it, I would do that. This isn't going to go very far. Excuse me. So what I'm going to do is, because the inside you won't see it, but the outside you will, I got some aluminum block, and I'm going to stick that on there as a backer. In this case, you're holding it, put a clamp on that. And now I got something to deliver weld to that's not going to stick to it. So that, and if I got a little bit of lumps on here, it's not going to matter because you'll never see it. Alright, that's that plan. Well, here's the welding done. You can see the clamp system that I got sitting here. And through the magic of editing, you see most of the major lumps ground off. So what I'm holding here is a little sample piece. When I'm not sure how I'm going to go about something, I like making little pieces, sample pieces, do some experiments with. I can almost actually use this one for the part I want to make. So what I was trying to figure out is, how do you make, it's one thing doing one straight bend, but when you have bends close together, my question is, okay, how was I going to make that? And it turned out to be actually fairly easy. You can see another one of my little experiments is even just doing the one bend. Well, I did a little bit of calculating. I found some 3/8 flat bar, which happened to work out good, because the form between here and there, it's actually off by about 30 seconds. So what I did was, I got another piece of scrap here, and the way it worked out is, if I made my first bend, let's just put it here just for the fun of it. I was actually using my vise for it, because it would actually give me a tighter bend than what my other little one of these contraptions would do. And what I would do is I use the soft mallet to get most of the shape down. Oh yeah. Don't be afraid to over tighten it. However, that almost made it right. But what I have to also do is tap down here to get a tighter bend to match what's over on the car. By hammering it down, I actually overbend it. I got to underbend it. Carpentry hammers are great, even for non-carpentry work. So let's straighten that out. So that's one bend. The other bend, the way it calculated out is if I were to take my flat bar and actually drop it down below about a 32nd of an inch. See, I tried a sample when it was flush and it just wasn't the right distance. So I figured, okay, about a 32nd out, we could fix that. And then, try again. Takes me back to one of the places I used to work at where I did a fair bit of prototyping for doing computer heat sinks. That was a fun job. Trying to come up with different ways of how to make things. Okay. And then we go and back and a little bit back. Let's see what we got. So now we got a shape. So see how well this matches up with here. It turns out this distance and this distance, this way and this way, they're the same. So it could fit either way. Yeah, so that's going to work. Now that I know how to make, now that I practiced on the sample, it's not a big deal to make this other little piece that comes in here. So I got to make one in here. Make sure I make it the right length, of course. It'll be the same for both sides in this case. And I'm going to come about halfway down. I can't do this one because the door is in the way. But what I want to do is I make this one piece that goes in here, weld it in from the inside. I can go from inside or outside. Okay, that way I've got something solid to work to, because I need that for the next part of the project. Okay, I figure I should learn by now. The bar, once it's sitting there, just below flush. So I thought I'd show you a little bit of a different setup. If you got access to a machine vise, much better. What I'm using here, this is hot roll, and the reason I chose this is because it has that slight radius. I am not going to wreck my jaws here. I'm going to keep them nice and sharp. But that's got the right radius. So when I put them in between here, it works a whole lot better. Now I already did the one other piece, and I want to show you the difference. How you get a nice clean bend. And this is a little bit rougher because the vise jaws are not in the greatest of shape on my bench vise. But this will work better. And the other little trick, once I get to the mark I want, so grab my other piece of flat bar, can literally use it to bend it around. And then, I think I'd rather use this. And I'm going to leave that at 90. There we go. Nice, crisp, clean bend. There we go. Much nicer than the other part. Well, I did a little bit of tweaking off camera, just little subtle hits, that sort of thing. But I got it about as perfect as I can possibly make it. Okay. The important thing is, okay, where the angles aren't that critical, but what is important is that all these lines, these three lines, are the same in the same spot. That's what's critical. That's what's got to line up. A little bit off here or there on the angle, I can hammer that into position, just a few taps. But I do want to show you something. Now that we got this one, okay, and that side will be the same as this side, we'll compare it to the other side and see what we get. Oh, surprise, surprise, old cars. Anyways, as you can probably see, at least I hope you can see it, if I line up the center one, this is out about the thickness of the material. This is at about half the thickness of the material, so I cannot make them identical. One side to the other is slightly different, enough that I'm going to have to make rights and lefts for these. Nothing major, but it's something to keep in mind if you're playing with this old stuff. So what we got here is a piece of 3/4 square bar, and inside of here I found a bolt and a nut, and it's just kind of hanging on by a thread, but that's all I need. It's just got a little bit of friction just to keep this from moving too much. Because what I do next, put this piece on now. I can get everything all nicely lined up. This rests on here. I can actually hold it without moving around. This sticking up doesn't matter. I'll be able to tap that down, but the trick is to get everything else lined up as best as I can. So the important thing is that these, this, and all these things line up, and they're also in a straight line. Yeah. I hate when that happens. Okay. Oh, lovely. Nice thing to check the backside for penetration. I'll give it a little extra. On a part like this, aesthetics are nice on the outside. You don't see anything on the inside. I'm far more concerned about structure. This is something that, because there's going to be so much load in this corner, you want to make sure it's strong. Lovely. Here we go. Finished ground. Nice and smooth. Nice straight lines the way they're supposed to be. Oh, happy with this part. Oh, I will show you something inside of here. You couldn't see before. I don't know if you can see it. I did leave the weld in here, and I really don't want to risk lose. I really want to keep the strength there, so I'll leave the weld in there. The other thing I'll point out is off camera, I put in some rust converter because a brush would reach down in here, and there's no way I'm going to get a grinder in there to clean the rust out. That's not going to happen. So that's where we're leaving that. All I got to do now is rinse and repeat for the other side. So what I've done here is I've measured down 10 inches because I want this to correspond with that. But as I stick this on here, you'll note that the line doesn't quite line up. It's on a weird, this is on a weird angle. So my little solution is I'm going to pick a point. I'm going to say about halfway. I want this and this flush. I'm going to mark the new line here. Now, this is going to be kind of important because what I need to do is I need to duplicate this line on the other piece, mirror imaged, so when I match them up, they're going to be the same. All right, so I took the line I scribed, extended it a little bit, because I needed to get around this radius here and put it in black so it's easier to see. So what I got to do now is make a template that wraps around. You need to mark the beginning and the end of the radius. That part I can see. The end of the radius. Got those two little marks in there. Next bit of fun is I can just barely see through it because I got to mark this side of it. Those two little marks. So now we set this one up. Locate to the end by this. All right. Put my little mark in there. Little mark goes here. Sticker pattern back on again. Oh. Side by side, make sure you don't put this on the wrong way. That would be really silly. Line up my mark. And my mark should line up. There. I think I'd rather scribe them because the problem with pencil lines is they can disappear. Now this should reasonably match the other side. Okay, I've only got two hands. It'd be nice if I had a couple extra, but unfortunately I don't. So, what we're doing is I want this flush with this on the line. If it goes, more importantly, to get it on the line here, this corner. And sighting down, basically eyeballing where the gap's going to be. Once I get it just right, zap it. There, that's it. Now, I can manipulate this a little bit to figure out where I want the other end before I figure out that other section piece of that to make. Alright, next bit of fun is I got a piece of material in here, about 1/2 inch. Between here and the door, it's on a taper, so depending on where I put this, going up or down, whatever, what I'm trying to do is make the gap between here and here and here and here the same. Knowing that the door is probably going to get changed. It's not the straightest, the whole bottoms have to be rebuilt. But it's this height here and here and here and here. I want to keep them the same. And yes, I'm using that ever faithful micrometer to do it. Okay. And that's going to end up there. So, grab a little bit of scrap. For some reason, Meg doesn't like Weldnrust. All right. Okay. That should do. So here's the challenging bit of engineering. What I got to create is a piece that joins this to this. And of course nothing straight, square, or anything for that matter. It's got to come in at an angle here. I want it boxed. So this is kind of a high stress point, and I want this strong. That's critical. I don't want this breaking. So it's just a question of making some cardboard patterns to try to figure out exactly what I want. Might be a little bit of trial and error and playing around with. So here we go. A cardboard pattern with a whole bunch of scrap bits of cardboard, of trial and error. I'm going to have to show you the thought process for how we came about this. Alright, as you can see, taped together, one piece at a time. So what I ended up doing, let me show you how it fits in here first, is I started with this piece, cutting it out, fit it in, cutting it to where I wanted it. Okay, I want to follow this contour. I want to overlap here by quite a bit, and I'll explain this tape in a minute. And the other side is not. The trick on this side is it has to fit inside of here. Eventually this is going to I'll have to cut this off, this bit, but it's going to have to get reshaped again, and that's going to have to sit over top of this. But more importantly, when the car's done, truck's done, there's a good chance this will be visible. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm going to put anything on. If not, then it'll definitely be visible, and I don't want this hanging down. That'll look silly from my perspective. So that's why that's only so long. That's why they're different lengths. And the other fun part is, let's see, this section in here is actually two different widths. Outside here is 2 1/4. Outside here is 2 inches. Hence, it's a tapered piece. So that way, everything slips over the way it's supposed to. Now, the other fun part is, why did I add that silly bit of tape? Because originally, I was going to only go to here. The problem was, on the back side, I want this and this to be on the same plane, perpendicular with this. Reason being is I haven't decided if I want to box this end in yet or not, and if it's the same plane, it makes it a lot easier. But that is going to be a future consideration. The other thing I'm going to have to make up, and I'm going to make this up afterwards once the door is off, is a little piece that fits inside of here. Minor details. But anyways, that's the pattern. And now the fun part's going to be making it in one piece on the plasma. Yeah, that should be fun. So, before I start laying this thing out, what I should do is a little bit of rustological study. This is the old piece of the one corner. The part that I'm making is actually sits in this area. Okay? But I got a piece of 18 gauge here, and it turns out the material originally from the factory was 18 gauge. So that's what we're making it out of. Well, the nice thing about 18 gauge is A, I got lots of it, B, I don't have to plasma cut it. I can use my shears, whatever. I would really like to find a marker that actually lasts. I got piles of them around here. You think any of them would last more than 5 minutes? There we go. My plan is I'm going to make these just slightly oversized, make 2 of them, tack them together, and then grind them to finish size. That way they're identical.